So without any further ado, let me bring to the podium the next congressman from the 5th Congressional District of Connecticut, Chris Donovan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see everybody on a beautiful day in Danbury. Who wouldn't want to be here today with such wonderful people in a wonderful, wonderful city? I want to again offer my best to the candidates who are running. Thank you for all the public officials here and all the friends who are gathered here today. And the reason we're gathered here today because we have the same purpose. The same purpose. We care deeply about Connecticut's families. We care deeply about their needs, their jobs, their health care, and what can we do as public officials, as public servants, as neighbors to make sure that they're taken care of. Just like we saw in Danbury today. There were problems with flooding. People went to help and make sure that people were taken care of. Last week, when they were having problems with electricity, people came together. I talked to the First Selectman from Bethel, all the work he was doing, and others to make sure that people were taken care of. That's what we do. That's what we do, and that's what we care about. We understand community. Well, my whole life has been dedicated to making sure families are taken care of. I'll tell you a little bit about it, and I'm looking down at Washington, and why I'm running is because I see things in Washington that are ignoring Connecticut's families, our families. And I feel obligated. I feel a duty to say I have to go down there and make sure that government responds to the needs of the people of our country. Now, this is something not new to me. Something not new to me. I've done it for many, many years. Actually, I was a community organizer for many years, and I worked in Meriden. I worked in Waterbury, good town so far, in New Britain and Danbury, and we worked on issues. Those are good towns in the 5th District, I do believe. And what we worked on, and my job wasn't just to say, hey, here's a good idea. My job was to talk to people, was to work with people, was to energize people to fight for what they should get in terms of government. Sometimes we'd call up the city councilor and it'd be taken care of like that. Other times we had to go visit them. But it was generally making sure that government responded to what the people needed. And we were able to do good things. We cleaned up abandoned housing. We cleaned up pollution. We made sure the stop sign was put back where it needed to be. We worked with people. And from that work, I then decided to run for state representative, and I worked on the same issues. I worked on the first family leave legislation in one of the first in the country that says that people get time off when they have birth or adoption. We take that for granted. Guess what? People had to fight for it, and I'm going to fight for things like that when I'm in Washington. Now, the other thing we worked on was pollution. We fought the Sooty 6. People know about those plants that were causing pollution. We worked on that. People working together and making sure that happened. Now, a lot of the things that I've worked for, and I'll give you a list of some of them, we worked with a Republican governor. We changed our campaign finance laws so that now everybody can afford to run for office, not just those with special interests. We make sure we expanded health care for seniors so they have the prescriptions they need and kids have the health care that they need. This is with the Republican governor. We were able to get this done. And we worked with my colleagues to make sure that everybody is treated with equity no matter who they want to marry or where they want to marry. This is America. Everybody's treated equally. We passed that as well. So now the question is, when things happen, how do you do that? When I look at Washington and say there's a deadlock, there's a gridlock, how do you make it happen? Well, I will give you an example. In 2009, Governor Rowell, in the midst of a budget crisis, put together a budget. And one of it was to cut the buses. There's a bus going by. And in that budget, we looked at what was there and we said, how does this affect Connecticut's families? And there were a lot of bad things for Connecticut families. So I could have done the usual politician thing as Speaker of the House and say, Governor, these cuts are bad. Governor says, I'm not going to raise taxes. These cuts are bad. I'm not going to raise taxes. But that would be just like we're seeing in Washington. No progress. Instead, I thought, who are the best allies to making change in our state, in our country? The people. So we took our argument to the people. I was on these steps, and we said the governor wants to cut the libraries. We had librarians, we had friends of the library, we had patrons of the library, and we said this is wrong, this is not a cut we should make for our city, our state. And guess what? The governor a little later said, all right, libraries are off the table. We then went to, in Danbury, went to family resource centers, we went to other places in Danbury and said, we need the daycare for these kids, we need health care for these kids, we want to make sure the seniors get dial-a-ride, and guess what? Then they were taken off the table in terms of the governor. We went to mental health facilities the governor wanted to close, and we made sure that people knew and the families knew what was happening. That was taking off the table. We took so many things off the table that budget started to look pretty good. Not only did it look pretty good, and it was a Democrat budget, there was one thing left to do. How are we going to pay for it? So it culminated with 200 kids outside the Capitol with bullhorns, little kids with big bullhorns and balloons. And outside the Capitol, I got a call from the governor, and we figured out a way to pay for all this. We raised the tax on millionaires. So if we can do it here in Connecticut, we can save the middle class in Washington, and we can tax the millionaires. We can take away the tax benefits for the oil companies and create jobs in our cities. If we give money to Wall Street and they don't create jobs, let's give the money to Main Street and hire some teachers. Let's hire some police officers. Let's hire some firefighters. Let's do these jobs. We have kids who are graduating from school right down the street. They want jobs. These are good jobs. They're looking for it. Let's hire those people. There's other things we can do. Now, I've read, I don't know if some of you watched the Republican debate. I don't know why you would do that, but read about it and hear about it on the radio. But one of the things I heard, and I just couldn't believe it, is that one of the candidates said that Social Security is really a Ponzi scheme. Is that a joke? Is that a joke? Is that what he's talking about? Social Security, which has really helped create the middle class in our communities, that have saved our grandparents from poverty and from all kinds of problems, that's a Ponzi scheme? Well, I'm going to tell you a story about that. My grandfather, he was born in 1886. He was a foreigner. He was from Canada, and he came here with his hands in the 1900s, and he went to work. And he did a lot of work, and one day Social Security came out in the 30s, and he looked at his payroll stub, and the number was wrong. So he goes, that's not right. So he went down to the payroll clerk and says, hey, you got the number wrong. And the guy says, look, Pat, isn't that a great name, Pat Donovan? Look, Pat, who cares? This is not going to last. Who cares what the number is? My grandfather, being a stubborn Irishman, said, no, I want to make sure this number is right. I don't care if it lasts or not, make sure you got the number right. So he lived to be 93 years old. And he used Social Security to make sure that his kids were taken care of, his grandkids were taken care of. He wasn't a burden in our family, though he lived in our house. He was my roommate, and he snored up a storm. But he had his health care taken care of. And think of the millions and millions of people that benefited from Social Security and Medicaid. My father, his son, went to college. And my father just turned 90 years old. My father's on Social Security and Medicare, and that's taking care of him too, and my mother as well. And I just attended my son's wedding this Saturday. I want Social Security to be there for him, and I want Social Security to be there for my grandkids. So when I'm going to Washington, hands off Social Security and Medicare. If anything, expand Medicare to include more people 55 and older, or even lower. That's the best way we can have health care. There's lots of things we can do and create jobs as well. Besides creating those jobs, we can help small businesses by saying, you know what, your health care costs are too high. We passed a bill this past year to open up the state health care plan to cities and towns that they can save money. We actually visited the mayor here a few years back, and we think they could save millions of dollars here. But guess what? He got a call from Governor Rell. He wasn't interested. There's money on the table right now that Danbury could save for health care, and don't decrease the level of care, but save money. We need to do more of that in Danbury across the state. Now, we can offer that to small businesses too. If I'm a small business and I'm saving money on health care, I'm able to hire more people. If 5,000 little businesses hire 2 people. That's 10,000 jobs. We passed a bill this year to lower energy costs. If we can lower the energy costs for small businesses, they can hire new people. So there's lots of that we can do. And I'm not going to do it alone. So I need everybody here, and I need everybody else. There's a lot of people out there, but the key thing is, in terms of experience, who's worked with governors, Democrat and Republican, who's worked with caucuses and written bills, I'm the one who's bringing the experience to Washington now. If we're looking for somebody who can go down to Washington and make things happen, I have the experience to make that happen. Nobody else has that. And that's what we need in these really tough times. That's what we need. So, when I was working on marriage equity, I worked with Love Makes a Family, and we got that passed. When I was working on expanding health care, I worked with Health Care for All, and we got that passed. When I'm working on energy issues, I work with CCAG, and we got that passed. When I'm working on campaign finance reform, I work with Common Cause, we got that passed. When I'm working on domestic violence, which we passed some of the best laws in the state in years, I worked with domestic violence workshops and make shelters. We made sure that happened. Together, we can make things change. Separately, we know we can't. So this is an important race for Connecticut. It's an important race for the 5th CD. It's an important race for Danbury. It's an important race for the United States of America. Thank you for your support. Let's go fight. Let's go win and make this happen. Thank you very much.